about the winter coming.
Well, we got a little taste of that, didn't we, last week with the cold and the snow for many of you up into the Northeast. So the question is, when is winter coming back? Well, who else do we ask but our winter weather expert, Tom Nizzle, standing by here to talk about actually not just winter coming back, but Tom, an interesting piece of the forecasting story, which is how something in the Western Pacific can impact our weather in the lower 48.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, you know, there's a lot of recent research that's been done on these recurving Westpac typhoons into the higher latitudes and the effects and the impacts that it has downstream across the United States.
It's crazy to think something tropical in nature could actually make it cold in the U.S., but it can, and it's interesting to see how it can play out. Not that it's going to necessarily, but to think about how it could work.
Absolutely, and in a very simple sense, when we have a rope or the jet stream here, and we introduce energy into that rope,
like something as strong as a almost super typhoon.
Then we will move that energy downstream. It puts huge undulations in the jet stream, and we end up with those types of conditions. And so here is what typically happens. So the tropical cyclone recurvature works its way northward into the high latitudes, and that August through November time frame is the time frame that we really see this. A lot of the energy from the system will amplify the jet stream. It first amplifies the jet, that leads to cyclogenesis downstream and the eventual building of a ridge along the west coast of North America. And what do you get when you get that big ridge oftentimes?
It's like the seesaw. When you go up somewhere, you're going to go down somewhere else, and often sets up over the eastern U.S.
Yes, and now we are days and days out. We're looking at the end of next week for this, but we've had a lot of conflicting model runs here because you're so far out in time and we're dealing with such a feature that is so far out on the Pacific.
Well, it's the whole butterfly flaps its wings now. What's going to happen, 10 days from now? Well, a lot will change. There's a lot in the atmosphere that still could happen. But it's interesting to see what could play out. You follow Chompy right here, and what happens to it?
The remnants of that, and it eventually gets absorbed into the mid-latitudes into a shortwave here, and this is where the models are having a real challenge. Typically, when you set up with this, you oftentimes will get this big ridge on the west coast. Here, we're not quite seeing that. It's dampened out a bit, and we will get some colder air into the northeast, but it's more of a progressive pattern here, so it should move through pretty quickly. And again, these are this is the cold air coming across southern Canada and then down into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast as you get into that Thursday night, Friday time frame going into the beginning of next weekend. But it is rather progressive, and it continues to move. Again, we're way out in time here. But
I mean, odds are that we will have a cold snap. The question is, how cold will it get? How far reaching, how far south will that cold get? And how long will it last, right?
Absolutely. So stay tuned here because
and Halloween is next Saturday. What to dress the kids in, right? That's a question.
And we want to get that out before Halloween actually occurs.
So. All right, Tom Nizzle, thank you. Let's tell you, though, about Kapu. Thankfully and mercifully, finally the rain is ending there. But, tremendous rain came out of that one. In the Western Pacific, we go to the Eastern Pacific, the 16th named storm of the season for the East Pac, Tropical Storm Patricia. In case you missed it last night, it happened as of the 10 o'clock advisory. So here we go with the newest one from this morning. Winds at 40 miles per hour, pressure 1,004, not much change. It's pretty far offshore. And what you'll notice as you look at the satellite is it's hard to pick out the center of circulation. The Hurricane Center agrees on that as well. And that's often the case when you have the first beginnings of a tropical storm. But there are tropical storm watches up right here, all the way with the hurricane watches up to Manzanillo. Puerto Vallarta up here, not under anything, and also Acapulco, not under any watch either, if you've got travel plans here. But know that this is a fairly large area of convection. Tropical storm force winds do extend out 140 miles. And as you can see, since it's hard to find the exact center of circulation right now, there's just a lot of thunderstorm activity all across this area. And so we were waiting for something to develop. It has. And when we put on the model winds, you can see that we do have a center of circulation, a general broad center right there. All right, so that's not too far from Acapulco. Let's talk about where this thing is going. The models are pretty much in line with taking it here, meandering it for a few days right there just off the coast of Mexico, and then actually making a landfall not too far from Manzanillo. It is expected to increase in strength to a hurricane. That's why the hurricane watches are up. It's going to be over very warm ocean water temperatures. You can see upper 80s here. So the record warm sea surface temperatures that we've been tracking through the season, through this El Nino, continue to be the case and will allow it to strengthen. The upper level conditions are conducive as well for strengthening. And the big trough over the southwestern U.S., the thing that's been causing all your thunderstorms in Phoenix and Tucson and Albuquerque and now Lubbock, that is going to help draw this up northward. So that's going to be one of the steering currents as we get you into the end of this week, into the early weekend, and that's when we'll see that potential landfall. And interesting to note that there have only been 4 other landfalls of a hurricane this late in the season in the eastern Pacific. So this is notable if it does make landfall. The rainfall is going to be our biggest concern. A lot of moisture with it, a lot of moisture out here already that we're working with. We've got the mountains lined up right here, and in some parts the peaks are up to 10,000 feet. So all that upslope flow is going to enhance the rainfall, could be 8 to 12 inches. And when you have the mountainous terrain, of course, you have the concern for mudslides as well. So that's going to be one concern. The other thing that we want to watch is that moisture connection from the tropics up here into the lower 48. And, you know, already we've been seeing a lot of active weather across the southwest. This big dip in our jet stream, the big trough, and the disturbances that have been rolling within it have been what's been causing that so far. But let's look at the moisture connection. We're going to see higher areas of precipitable water. That's these red colors right here. That starts to explode over Texas, meaning that there's water, a lot of water in the atmosphere for anything to work with. If there's something to make it rain, and we will be seeing that by the time we get into the weekend. So expecting some big rain in Texas, and there is a tropical link to it anyway. All right, guys.